Hi everyone, and welcome to this 24th annual Remembrance ceremony where we remember people who've lost their lives to drugs. We would normally be running this ceremony in Bill Cruz's church in Ashfield, but due to the lockdown situation here in New South Wales, that's not possible, so we are producing this video as an alternative. I'd like to start by playing a song. It's a song that I often play, and when I do I remember Damien. So it's Katie Mellew, so let's play that song.
So silently it lies beneath the shade of blue. It struck me so violently when I looked at you. But others pass, they never pause to feel that magic in your hand. To me you're like a wild rose, they never understand why. The sky cried for you, and when you went I became a hopeless drifter. But this life was not for you, though I learned from you that beauty need only be a whisper. I'll cross the sea for a different world, with your treasure a secret for me to hold. In many years they may forget this love of ours, or that we met. They may not know how much you meant to me. Cried for you, and the sky cried for you, and when you went I became a hopeless drifter. But this life was not for you, though I learned from you that beauty need only be a whisper. Now I see how fragile the world can be, and I know you've gone away, but in my heart you always stay. I cried for you, the sky cried for you, and when you went I became a hopeless drifter. But this life was not for you, though I learned from you that beauty need only be a whisper. That beauty need only be
Very sadly, drug deaths are still happening. I generally talk to at least one family every week who've lost someone recently. Their pain and their grief is agonizing, and it takes a hell of a long time for their lives to get back to any kind of normality. I try and help people to adjust to life without the person they love, and to get them away from the agonizing pain that the loss leaves them with when it first happens. It took me some time to get to a point where I no longer felt that pain, and I could remember Damien with joy and with good memories and an appreciation of the fact that he lived rather than the fact that he died. Since we started this ceremony in 1997, we estimate about 30,000 Australians have died from drugs. If you then look across the world, it must be in the hundreds of thousands, and it still continues. What we would normally do at the ceremony at the church would be we would read names out on our memorial list. We have more than 400 names on that list, and it usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes to read them all. I'm not going to read the whole lot today, I'm going to just read a sample. You can go to our website, www.fds.org.au, look at the memorial wall and you'll see all the names that we've got there. But let me just read some of these people who have died. Malu Mark Belair, age 23. Alan Bennett, 55. Leslie Berg, 21. Karen Lynn Berry, 17. David John Beecroft, 34. Bernadette Bohm, 22. Christopher Blake, 29. Terry Bliss, 33. Shay Louise Bressington, 22. Gina Brown, 35. Natalie Jane Brown, 33. Paul Brown, 38. Rachel Elizabeth Brown, 30. Zoe Berger, 22. Natasha Burridge, 33. Jennifer Louise Burton, 19. Justin Joseph Byrne, 44. Ronnie Byrne, 27. Jeff Carbrow, 47. Bindi Calder, 16. Gavin Cayley, 24. Christopher Cameron, 24. Ian James Campbell, 30. Jennifer Claire Campbell, 37. Naomi Carden, 27. Albert Noel Carey, 37. Pamela Carey, 31. And Simon Gilliland, 29. It's just a few of those names, and it's just tragic hearing them and hearing their ages. All of them mostly under the age of 40. I want to give a shout out to the injecting centres in Sydney and Melbourne, because without their work there would be a lot more people on our list. We know that they are saving lives all the time because people regularly overdose but never die in those facilities. So well done to the Sydney and Melbourne M6 and their wonderful staff. We're now going to hear from two amazing mothers, Becky and Jen, and they're going to talk about their lovely daughters, Paris and Alex.
Okay, so Paris would be turning 27 on the 20th of July this year, and so this is a good time to be doing this memorial for her, to acknowledge her birthday and just the person she was. You know, when I think about Paris as who she was, I just, she was such a free, lively spirit and like a shining light in all our lives. And I think about at 27 being at the threshold of your life of all the things she would have accomplished over the years. This year is the 9th anniversary since she was found dead in a bed from an accidental drug overdose on October 20th, that was. And, I guess what's really, I feel about it is just the impact of her absence in all our life, like in every aspect of all my kids' lives, her siblings. They're all older than what she was when she died. They've, all the things she's missed out on, all the events that we have, in every aspect. Her not being part of it is what is the most sort of, I don't know, it impacts on all our lives in every way. So, I see with, all the milestones that, it's the future of all the milestones that she's missed out on, and with my children, they've all achieved things, or they're doing the things that she should have. She was the eldest of my 4 children, and my youngest, who was Zephyr, who was 8 when she died, he's nearly as old as what she was. So it's a big shock for that kind of, when the realization of those things, and just how, I don't know, all her friends that are now married or had children or travelled and all that, all those things that she hasn't managed, been there to accomplish. And people talk about, the fact of time going by. And, I think when she first died and the shock of it all, I was under this delusion that, one day you must everyone just accepts or moves on in their life, and somewhere you compartmentalise this person that was there, and life just becomes normal as such again. But for me, I've found that over the years, it's actually, it kind of eats away at you in like this sort of insidious way of the grief. Just when it becomes so immersed in everything you do, because in every celebration there's a sadness. Like every joyous moment for all of us, there's always this acknowledgement that she's not part of it and everything. And I think about events that Paris, just before, the years just before she died, of Paris being at, and when I think about her, it was always this very hilarious, vibrant, joyous person, and her death does her no justice in who she was as a person, because there's this whole idea when you think, oh, someone died of a drug overdose, there's this whole stigma and this idea that of the type of person that was, and it's not her. She was so, I don't know, just so into life, and just everything we did was this funny event. And even when I sit there, I sometimes look at her pictures of her, and all I see is this, this person with all this vibrancy and love and compassion, and but I guess for me, one of the grief has just never eased. Like for me, it's in everything we do, everything I think about. I wonder what, what her place in that moment would be, all those moments that are lost. Something that, I didn't realise, was that whole thing of having that person not in the dynamic of the other children and everything, and also just in our lives, like that, the whole, everything's changed. And it's sometimes, I worry that I'll forget who she is, what, there's this side that I go, was it even real? Did she, there's this surrealness to the fact that she was part of everything, because every aspect of our life is so different in some ways, yet the loss and that it's so immediate all the time. Like everything I do, I feel like she's there and she's present. So in one way there's this length of time that sort of puts, like, where I can't remember things, but then it's then they're part of me at every cell. Like it's like she's living in every cell of me, and physically, emotionally and spiritually, and that I just sort of like it's there at every present in every moment that I take a breath, sort of thing. Yeah, I think, you know, this every year on her birthday and on the anniversary in October, we have like this tradition of going down to Ostermere Beach, where we've got a plaque on the cliffs, and because Ostermere was her absolute favourite place, and so we go down there to mark the day and everything. So this year it's not, we won't be doing that just because of the situation and with COVID and everything. We won't be able to do that, so, you know, doing this memorial talk for her, to acknowledge her life and the beautiful person she was, and remember, you know, just who she was, and that she is still in our life now and forever. Like we acknowledge that she's always going to be in our life. We celebrate every milestone that she would have done, every birthday and everything. I think, you know, for the whole family, but in particular her siblings, as the years have gone on, I see the impact, her not being in there, like that piece of the puzzle in their dynamic, just not being there. And I see the effect of that on them more and more as they get older and they start trying to process that loss, you know. And, you know, people think that over time it gets easier, but I think when it's been a child that's died, and so suddenly it's like it doesn't end. It actually, there's more loss, there's more things they've not achieved, that more events and celebrations, or just the whole life in front is gone in a moment. And I think that's something that is a really important thing to acknowledge. And also, after she died, you know, I did find there was not a lot of support in terms of loss, but, you know, in terms of losing someone to a drug overdose, there's another complex issue to that. And, you know, there is often this stigma or judgment that happens, and, you know, people will immediately think, well, you know, well, that was their choice or something. And there's actually, you know, sometimes even in that area of things, it's hard to navigate that loss because you are subjected to people's criticisms or opinions on that. And, you know, Paris was certainly not a person that deserves that judgment, or either as a parent, either, like, it was just an unfortunate event that happened, and, you know, it does her no justice or anything to her name that, you know, there is those sorts of societal judgments around that kind of loss and death and stuff. You know, I suppose sometimes I'm still in shock. Like, people think, well, surely over time you've accepted it, but in some ways I feel like it's actually, like, I don't know, I find I'm still as much in shock, if not more sometimes, at just the lack of her being in our life and her not being here. But yeah, so this was a poem that my father wrote just after she died, and I think this is such a beautiful, like, one, it kind of acknowledges all that encompasses who she was. And so I'd like to read this for her. It's called Paris in the Morning Air. I look at Paris in the morning air, when whispers and cymbals tell me she's near. I hear the clatter of her bangles and bells, and glimpse the strands of her fluttering hair. I look up to see her, and yes, she's hovering, hovering, hovering there. Paris, I say, before my tears well and fall. How could you leave us in shock and despair? And then she is turning, her eyes shine full clear. Her cheeks are full rounded, and her smile full of cheer. I stretch out to touch her, but wait, she beseeches. I have flown past your grasp and your beckoning reaches. I have left behind pain and suffering and fear, and on Pegasus I'm riding the wind and the air.
Wow, that's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Becky, for sharing. I know it's not easy to talk about, but for us it's really important to remember people, and people is more than a statistic or using a drug. And your words around Paris are really beautiful and honour her memory. So I just really want to thank you for myself and all of us at FDS for being so brave to share your story.
And could I just add something? And I do really want to acknowledge, like, Family Drug Support and Tony in, you know, when Paris died, like, I had no idea of both anything around the drug use or any support. I had no sort of, even just child loss, I had no support. I knew no one. And, you know, it's such a complex issue, the drug, you know, addiction sort of whole aspect. And I have to say, like, you know, Tony contacted me after she died, and I didn't know him. I didn't even know about Family Drug Support at that point. And, you know, he just having someone who, one, had experienced that, like, not only the loss of their child, but also in relation to the whole drug usage and that kind of loss, you know, it was really, like, it really helped me, and it gave me a lot of courage and a lot of strength. And, you know, it did offer me support. And, you know, like, just having someone that understood was really, and sympathetic to that whole issue and cause and everything, was really, like, it meant a lot to me. And, you know, in fact, it's sort of, you know, after that I did kind of get the strength to then start a support group myself around child loss, and not just, you know, around drug addiction, but in that, you know, knowing that there were other people who were going through that and had experienced that has also made me be able to sort of stand staunchly, you know, in the eyes of sort of judgment and that, and think, well, this is a whole world issue, and it's like, it affects everyone, and no one's immune to that kind of, you know, family event, no matter where you come from or who you are. And, you know, I often think that, you know, in moments where I feel like I have to justify either myself as the parent or Paris that she died of a drug overdose, I often think, no, hang on, there's a whole lot of people. And, you know, I think back to when Tony contacted me, and then I heard about all these other families that are affected by it. And I do really want to acknowledge that it did really mean a lot to me and help me at times. And even now I always think about that. And he gave me the opportunity to, at different times, to go and talk, one about Paris and her life at memorial events, but also like to talk about the drug law reform things when I went to Parliament and talked about that and got to tell Paris's story. And she wasn't treated fairly, and neither were we as a family when she died, even by the police. And purely because she died of a drug overdose. Like, immediately when she died, they just wrote that off as, oh well, just this girl. Like, there was no investigation, there was no support for us as a family. And an 18-year-old being found dead in their bed is not a usual circumstance. They didn't even talk to me at all. They did nothing. They didn't ever contact until I contacted and kept pushing and pushing for investigations and inquiries. And they just said, oh well, she died of a drug overdose, who cares? Like she was just this, no good junkie on the streets, which just wasn't the case. And so even in her death, just this whole stigma and the way even people in that sort of power can decide on who your daughter is. And I had to fight the coroners to do further investigations, to do find out actually what had happened around the circumstances of her death and why she died. And it took me a year of fighting, and in the end, they tried to reopen the case a bit, and they acknowledged that there were, unusual circumstances and everything. But they still just said, oh well, who cares, it's not going to bring her back, she's dead. So even in that, there was still very little kind of acknowledgement. And it was clear that it was because, if someone dies of an accident of any other kind, whether it be a car accident or any other kind of, type of death, even suicide, there are inquiries and it is a full investigation. Even suicide comes under a mental health thing, and there's a lot of things, but a drug overdose is just sort of considered as, well, that was their fault, or we don't want those sort of people in the world. And there's just no sort of the person in that's died, it's like they don't see that's someone's daughter or friend or family member. But so I think the Family Drug Support whole organisation is really, that's really worthy, and it's good that they're trying to get a lot more support, not only around the law reform stuff, but also just around supporting families that are going through this kind of trauma and grief and everything. Because once your child dies, or anyone really, but once your child dies, the grief doesn't go, the trauma's there for the entire family. You've got a whole life you're missing out on. And Paris was 18, she just was about to start her whole world, and we had no idea of her drug use, but there was no support either. If perhaps she had been able to get some sort of resources in Sydney and know where to go for help, and there was a lot more support for that, maybe she would have reached out.
It's interesting when people ask me to speak about Alex, and of course I get upset immediately, not for any other reason that the reason why I'm talking about her. I never have a problem speaking about her with people who knew her. And I think when speaking to, for all intents and purposes, strangers about her, I just don't think that I can explicitly explain her as a person. I can't find the words to actually tell people what kind of person she was, but I'll try. So, she was so bright, both in personality and in, smarts. She was caring, she was empathetic, she was creative, she was talented. She was beautiful on the outside and she was beautiful on the inside. She really had a good soul. She would reach out to just about anybody. In fact, I've had many messages from people that I never met that she went to school with, and bearing in mind she'd left school a year and a half earlier or 2 years earlier, before she went to the Angels. And I've had messages via Facebook from kids that she went to school with, just saying, you don't know me, but I went to school with Alex and she really had a massive impact on me in my life. One boy in particular had a car accident a few months after Alex went to the Angels, and he's now a quadriplegic in a wheelchair. And he took the time to message me and just say that he spent a lot of time thinking about Alex and what she taught him as a person, and it actually has helped him get through a lot of the rehab that he had to and continues to go through. And he just felt the need to message me, and I don't remember him. I asked some of the other kids, and they said, oh yeah, he went to our high school, but he was only there for a short period. So I just, like, things like that really, really, as a parent, as a mother, make me really proud. She unfortunately made a mistake, and it is a mistake, and not, there was lots of mistakes that day. I like to actually call it the perfect storm, because in fact that's what it was. It was a combination of just about everything that was Alex's demise. It really was. She didn't eat breakfast that day. She was consuming alcohol that day. It was extremely hot. In temperature, it was, I think, don't quote me, I think it was about 39 degrees. This is in Parramatta Park, so very little to no breeze. There was some shade, but I can only imagine dancing on a dance floor in the sun. The temperature would be much greater. It was a combination of these kids not really knowing enough about what they were doing. And because of that, nobody knew what was happening, not even Alex. I do believe, though, that, and funnily enough, regardless as to what's happened, everything does happen for a reason. We don't always like the reason. We don't always know what the reason is. Don't have to agree with it either. But I do believe in some ways that this happened for a reason to Alex and not someone else that day. Sorry. I believe that despite that day, and the worst possible outcome for Alex, of course, and me and my family, she has in fact probably saved a few lives within her direct peer group. Well, I know that purely because I know that the conversations that I've had and the messages that I receive is just that, young people saying, I would have been still doing that if this hadn't happened. We didn't know just how bad it could get, even though they're told, we all know that consuming illicit substances in particular. There are so many unknowns because, you know, nobody's policing them, and I don't think young people really realise that. And because of that, and because, you know, because of what happened to Alex, there's many young people out there that she either touched or somehow, you know, even just seeing her on the news during when it all first happened, resonating that, wow, that could be me. So I do, and I, you know, sometimes I think I need to believe that she has saved other people's lives. Oh, she was a brat. She wasn't any angel, although she is now. She, you know, she pushed my buttons, I pushed her buttons, and you know, just like any young teenager, you know, she knew better than I did. You know, she had an untidy room most of the time. Sometimes it was clean, but only on her terms, of course. You know, I'd find one of the dogs under the bed eating leftover nachos or something like that. You know, there were, you know, frozen Coke stains on her carpet. There were, you know, all that stuff. Wet towels on the bathroom floor, just like every other teenage kid. But she also had big dreams. And she had a life ahead of her. And it breaks my heart that she's not going to fulfill those. I think when you lose a child, you time stops for you, but everything else keeps moving around you, and that's hard. But I mean, I guess, you know, strange as it might sound, Alex is still a really, well, she's part of my day every day, regardless. I always speak with her. She's always with me. I know she's with me, otherwise I wouldn't be here. And despite her not being here physically, she does form a big part of what I do and how I conduct myself and move forward. She, you know, she was very powerful when she was here, and I believe that she's just as much, if not more so, now. It depends on what you believe, I suppose, but, you know, we come from somewhere and we go somewhere. So I firmly believe that, you know, she is with me every single day, and she is a part of my day every day because of that. I see, you know, her friends. We recently had pre-COVID lockdown a celebration for her birthday, which is difficult because, you know, 70 or so of her friends were over, and, you know, I see them growing and, you know, relationships changing and them moving out and getting their own places and things like that. And I guess I should be, you know, sad about that because Alex isn't doing those things, but I think I just see the joy that they're having and that they're now continuing on with their lives. But still very much, Alex is still a part of their life. I don't really speak to people that don't really know about Alex, and I suppose it's not difficult to speak about her, but in the context that, you know, I'm doing this, it is, because it's not, you know, just remembering something that she did, or, you know, something happening and going, oh, you know, Alex would, etc., etc. But I think it's extremely important for, you know, parents to speak up and in forums like this to better enable, I guess, the experts and the specialists and the academics and, you know, just people who, you know, volunteer for SDS, for example, truly, hopefully get a better, I don't want to say understanding because you could never understand, but a better idea as to just how important their work is to prevent and stop this happening more often, well, less often than it does, because it really is an unnecessary way to die. It really is preventable. It really doesn't have to be, and I know that now. And I guess from my point of view, my messaging from when everything happened to now and to the future, that you don't know what you don't know as a parent and as a young person who is experimenting, which is what Alex was doing. It wasn't about addiction. It was just about a rite of passage, really. And I honestly believe that if she knew more and I'd known more about not just the effects, but the symptoms of what was happening, and be able to mitigate those, then I wouldn't be sitting here today. And I really prefer you not have any other candidates to be able to interview into the future, if we can help it. And we can educate and inform people and help people in these situations that they find themselves in.
In thinking about all the people who have died over the years, I'm going to show you some photos now of just a handful of those people. People who've been lost from members of FDS.
Every day I wake up, I hope I'm dreaming. I can't believe this shit. Can't believe you ain't here. Sometimes it's just hard for a nigga to wake up. It's just hard to just keep going. It's like I feel empty inside without you being here. I would do anything to bring you back. I'll give all this shit up. Shit don't mean nothing. I saw your son today. He looked just like you. You was the greatest. You'll always be the greatest. I miss you, babe. Can't wait till that day when I see your face again. I can't wait till that day when I see your face again. This right here, tell me what goes out to everyone that has lost someone that they truly love. Check it out. Seems like yesterday we used to ride rock the show. I lace the track, you lock the flow. So far from hanging on the block for dough. Notorious, they got to know that life ain't always what it seemed to be. Words can't express what you mean to me. Even though you're gone, we still a team. Through your family, I'll fulfill your dreams. In the future, can't wait to see if you open up the gates for me. Reminisce sometime. The night they took my friend. Try to black it out, but it plays again. When it's real, feeling's hard to conceal. Can't imagine all the pain I feel. Give anything to hear half your breath. I know you're still living your life after death. Us while we pray for you. Every day we pray for you. Till the day we meet again. In my heart is where I keep you, friend. Memories give me the strength I need to proceed. Strength I need to believe. My thoughts big, I just can't define. Wish I could turn back the hands of time. Us in the six, shop for new clothes and kicks. You and me taking flicks, making hits. Stages they receive you on. Still can't believe you're gone. Give anything to hear half your breath. I know you're still living your life after death.
The people we're remembering today all died as a result of drug use. But we could easily say that drug use deaths are preventable. They don't need to happen. We know that with the right policies we can change that. We know that there's evidence from around the world, from other countries such as Portugal, where decriminalisation has meant a huge difference. It's actually reduced drug use, crime and all the other problems that are usually associated. We need some action. We need some politicians to take the bit and to change things. We did it in 1984 when bipartisan support from both parties got us harm reduction strategies and harm minimisation as our national policy. Without that happening, we wouldn't have needle and syringe programs, and blood-borne diseases would be out of control. We wouldn't have methadone programs, which is a standard top treatment service for people affected by opiates, and we certainly wouldn't have the 2 injecting facilities that we've got now. So come on, we can do better, Australia. Before we finish, I want to also acknowledge the families that are still struggling with substance use amongst their family members. We get 25,000 calls every year to our telephone support line. Numerous issues that people have to struggle with. I'm going to play a song now for those families. It's a song I would have liked Damien to have heard. It's a song that was written by Van Morrison. It's called Irish Heartbeat, and this version is by Billy Connolly.
Three Van Morrison songs says it better than I can about how I feel. Oh, won't you stay a while with your own ones. Don't ever stray so far from your own ones. For the world is so cold, don't care nothing for your soul. You share with your own ones. Don't rush away from your own ones. Just one more day with your own ones. This whole world is so cold, don't care nothing for your soul. You share with your own ones. And there's a stranger, and he's standing outside your door. Might be a best friend, might be a brother, you may never know. I'm going back to my own one. Back to talk a while with my own one. This whole world is so cold, don't care nothing for your soul. You share with your own ones. Rolling. Stay a while with your own one. Don't ever stray so far from your own one. For the world is so cold, don't care nothing for your soul. You share with your own. Thanks, everybody.